We have also with us Matt Horace. He's a former ATF agent. He's joining us on the phone. Matt, again, partly to Kathleen's point about the tactics that ISIS is using, and also understanding that it's very easy for us, especially as reporters, to second-guess public officials. Clearly, as one person during that press conference said, the superintendent was following his heart and felt that he wanted to protect the children, and that's something that clearly is important, obviously, to the families and to all Americans. But I wonder, in this reaction that we've seen, if this threat, and we don't have it confirmed that it is a non-credible threat in the case of Los Angeles, but if it turns out to be a non-credible threat, if you are our enemies and you are watching this unfold, what are you gleaning from our reaction to something like this?
Well, I think we have to always assume that our enemies are watching our reactions. But, you know, everyone in this decision-making process, specifically the school officials, have made it very clear that they had no other interest in this but for the safety of the children, just like superintendents do in the Northeast when they cancel school because weather is treacherous or hazardous. The whole reason why that's done is to keep kids safe. So they've made that clear at every step, and it's also been clear that the police didn't make that decision, the school district did. So in the line of the authority, that's who has the responsibility to do it, and they did it.
Matt, how realistic is it that a sweep can be conducted quickly of all 900 public schools, 187 charter schools attended by these more than 600,000 students in the LA Unified School District? I mean, you know, we're talking about a very vast area here that needs to be covered.
Well, I think in the scope of information that they may know that we don't know, I don't think it's realistic to expect that every single school could be swept to its completion in one day. Now, in that we don't have the information that they do have, they may be able to do adequate enough sweeps to satisfy the threat and satisfy mitigating the threat in their eyes.
Is that taking dogs through and so on, or how does that
Yes.
even begin to work?
By using explosive detecting canines, using all 300 officers assigned to the school district police department, collaborating with the other federal, state, and local departments, they could actually get it done. But again, it's all being done as an abundance of caution. And I don't think it's reasonable to overreact to their response because clearly we can't do this at every school district based on every threat that ISIS or any other group delivers every day of the year. It would disrupt our lifestyle significantly.
And Matt, we were talking earlier to a former FBI agent, and we were asking the distinction between credible and non-credible, how federal law enforcement and all law enforcement officials make that distinction. And he gave us a really interesting example. He said, well, if somebody calls in and says, you know, there's a bomb in your school or in one of your schools, that's a non-specific threat. Whereas if somebody calls and says, you know, I know, for example, Vladimir Putin leaves his office every day at 5 p.m. and he goes, you know, to have coffee at this Starbucks on 57th Street, then that's a specific threat that federal officials and law enforcement officials would try to track down. So I guess the question is, when you hear that a school superintendent made a decision like this, and in the case of New York, they consulted with some federal law enforcement agencies, here in LA they didn't, I wonder, does that give you pause?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't, only because, you know, LA is a different environment. They approach things differently out there. And as we heard, the police chief did consult he did speak with Commissioner Bratton because they're getting threats all the time, and the public has no idea in reality how many threats are given on a given day from different organizations. So it really doesn't cause me as a law enforcement person pause to cause, but it may give members of the public, you know, pause to cause.
I just want to be clear, though, Matt, because if I heard the superintendent, Ramon Cortines, correctly, he said that it was after consulting with the Los Angeles School Police Department that he went ahead with the decision to close the entire school district, and that it was sort of after the fact, it seemed to me, that in fact the other agencies were brought in, but the initial decision was based on the consultation with the LA Schools Police Department. So what do you make of that? Because frankly, I don't think a lot of people, myself included, are familiar with the role of a school police department in trying to vet intelligence, or trying to vet a threat like this, what their experiences, what their capabilities are in trying to determine, especially with this landscape that we're living in, the terror threat landscape, what constitutes a credible threat or not.
Right. Well, that's the only area I think that's up for discussion because typically on the East Coast, and particularly here in New York, those decisions are going to be made in consultation with Commissioner Bratton and the NYPD, the FBI, and the JTTF, and other intelligence sources. And remember, law enforcement is evaluating intel every single day, 24 hours a day, to make those determinations of whether threats are credible or whether threats are non-credible and potential hoax.